What the heck is Formula One?
Pole position, strategy,
yachts and parties,
safety car, Ferrari.
beautiful corners.
Oh, right, okay. There's a car in front of you. Try and overtake it.
Oh, I hate you so much. Hello, you fools. Welcome back to another Formula Fools podcast. I didn't write the new intro on the doco here, so I can't remember what it is. Let's just go with this. I'm David, your self-appointed expert on the podcast, and with me is Skin, who is the resident fool on the podcast.
Hello. Thank you for having me again, Dave. Always a pleasure to be here.
You see how we're kind of co-hosts?
Oh, yeah.
It's not like me hosting you or anything. It's like we do this together.
Oh, yeah, I always forget about that. No, it's good. Good to be back. I have questions and I would like them answered. I'm excited.
I think a lot of people have questions. There's been, just like last year, there's been a lot of debate about Monaco after the race. And so hopefully we can answer a lot of people's questions that they have. Just a little intro to what we're doing here. We're going to be talking about the Monaco Grand Prix. If we can find ways of improving it or looking at the history of it and why it is as prestigious as what it is. So just a little intro on the Monaco Grand Prix. It has been a Grand Prix event since 1929. Even though Formula One didn't start officially until 1950, people were still racing Grand Prix cars and doing Grand Prix races before Formula One had like an official rule book and an official championship.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, okay. Bit off topic. This wasn't meant to be a question on this week's app, but what the heck's the difference between those two things then, Formula One and a Grand Prix? How were the Grand Prix as early as 1929 and Formula One didn't start until 1950?
Because people would get together and do, because I think there might be one in New Zealand as well. Like there were just ones everywhere because people would just get together and go, we've all got similar cars. Let's race these cars that are very similar and let's do it over a 2-hour period or whatever it was. So it's kind of like classed as a Grand Prix and they would call it the Monaco Grand Prix. But it just, the Formula One, like the official Formula One start of 1950 was when there was a rule book, there was an actual championship, everything got unified and brought together so that, you know, we could kind of actually have a more level playing field and people could build cars towards the same goal and objective instead of just rocking up in whatever car with whatever engine you wanted to.
Right. Okay. Well, let's dive into that on another day, maybe.
The start of F1. We can do that. So the streets of Monte Carlo have played host to one of motorsport's most iconic and prestigious events since then. So it's obviously one of the longest running tracks on the F1 calendar, which plays into its history and why it has such a high regard within the Formula One community and the motorsport community. It obviously winds through the very narrow and small streets of the country of Monaco, which sits on the south of France. Even though it's its own country, has its own laws and prince and princess and everything like that. There's a lot of landmarks that it passes, such as the harbour, the casino square, and then even just down the main straight within itself of F1 has become quite a iconic part of the circuit because of things that have happened over the years. And just, I don't know, I feel like you can look at any shot of the main straight of Monaco and know that it's Monaco. Like it's such a beautiful main straight. With virtually no overtaking opportunities or runoff areas or anything like that, the track leaves no room for error. It is a race where qualifying is king and strategy reigns supreme, which we saw in this week's race. We've already spoken about that on the Monaco podcast that went out last Friday. So go check that out, episode 13, if you've not seen that one or listened to that one. Despite all of its criticism over the years, its unique charm, prestige, and undeniable allure, I always struggle with that word.
Okay.
That's why I wrote it. And by me, I meant Chad. Continue to secure its place on the F1 calendar. Love it or loathe it, Monaco is where legends are, I added brackets, were made.
Really?
Yep.
Why would you do that?
We'll talk about that a little bit later.
Okay.
Yep. You've got a question and I've answered it specifically for that.
Right. Okay. Cool. Very exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess in summary, it sort of feels like well, yeah, I'm a fool. I only really bothered getting into F1 recently when I met you, and you didn't talk about anything else. But so obviously Monaco's been around forever. People love it, but it feels like there's a bit of a problem in recent years, which is the races there are quite boring.
Yep.
To watch.
Yep.
And to drive in, from all reports.
Yeah.
Because there aren't many overtakes, essentially. Is that a fair summary?
Absolutely. I think we had, it may have been George or Kimi or someone like that said after this year's race that he could have gone around in a Formula 2 car with the lap times that they were doing. So yeah, like it kind of, when you look at the speed of Baku or Jeddah or Monza, like these really fast tracks that really show off what Formula 1 cars can do, or even tracks like Australia or Budapest, like tracks that are still tight and difficult to overtake, but you can still flex the muscle of being in an F1 car and like really push it to the limit. On tracks like this, driving slow is actually better. Like if you drive slow around Monaco, you're most likely going to win. Daniel Ricciardo I think it was 2016, he won it, qualified on pole, and then had a problem in the car, but just drove as slow as he needed to get the car home and still won the race because there was just no overtaking opportunities. So yeah, it's been a long time we've had this issue with Monaco. It's not a new thing. I think the whole point of the 2-stop rule was to try and get some more overtaking, but yeah, day late and a dollar short.
Okay. And so, yeah, so the reason for there being no overtaking opportunities is just thin, windy roads and bigger cars, right?
Yeah.
So how long, if it's not a new thing, how long has it been a problem for? Like, when did it become a pain in the ass? I presume at some point Monaco was a good race to watch when there were smaller cars. Is that fair to say?
I think, do you know what? Like back in the 80s, 90s, when you look back at them races, you can see that there was more overtaking or easier overtaking opportunities, but back then they had the problem of having sometimes 26, 28 cars on the grid. So then it was just chock-a-block. There was too many cars. During races, people would crash out, whatever. Looking at like I think it was the 82 or the 83 race when Senna was just like overtaking people left, right and center in the Tolman. Like when you look at races like that with rain, there has been good racing in the past, most likely down to smaller cars, and an era of when cars weren't as reliable as what they are today. So smaller smaller driver errors would come into play a lot more. I honestly don't know the last time we had a Monaco Grand Prix that I enjoyed watching. Like I feel like since I was a kid, it's always just been, let's watch qualifying and then hope for a good race. There's never been like, it's guaranteed to be a good race.
Yeah.
You're almost always guaranteed a good qualifying, but the race is usually boring.
Okay. And is that, I guess that's another question, is like, is that big of a problem? Like, I feel like people that talk about, well, certainly this year have spoken about it. Yeah. I presume pretty much every year they would speak about Monaco having a fairly boring race. But is that a problem? Or like there would be a school of people that just think, like we should just accept that Monaco is the one race of the year where you just watch qualifying.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like year to year, it annoys me. Like this year was an annoying one because we've had a fairly okay season. Like it's not been the best. Like it's been whoever qualifies on pole is going to win because the regulations are frozen. But I kind of, in a season like this, you kind of want each race to offer something new, and Monaco didn't offer anything new this year. So yeah, like I feel like people, especially older F1 fans or purists, will change their mind year to year depending on what the season is doing. Like last year was kind of like Charles had never won, so everyone was like rooting for Charles, and when he did win, it was like, yeah, great, like good for you, well done. That was interesting and exciting. The same in 2016 when Danny Rick won. Like it was boring ass race, but because Danny Rick won it and got his redemption, it was like it was a nice feeling. It was I watched the podium, whereas this year it's like the race finished and I was like, okay, sweet. I don't need to watch the podium. Like all the drivers are going to do is say, yep, it was an easy as fuck race. So.
Okay. And then, all right. So if it's getting harder and harder to overtake at Monaco because cars are getting bigger, is there anywhere on the track, like, is it possible to get a genuine overtake? Like this year we saw like pretty much nothing really. Like there were cars.
I think there was two. One of them I think was when Alonso's engine blew up. And I think it was before his. I don't know, but I read online earlier that there was 2 official overtakes this year.
2 official overtakes
on track.
Okay.
Yeah. Or something like. I don't really know, but I'm sure I read earlier it was 2 official overtakes.
Yeah, right. Okay. Well, I suppose if you count Alonso's engine blowing up, that certainly helps.
Yeah.
I don't really remember seeing any though, but obviously there were like people driving past each other, like lapping the back of the whatever the back markers. Thank you, Disc. But yeah, so there's not a lot of genuine overtakes. So is it like where on the track is it possible to get a genuine overtake? Like we saw Albon driving like however slowly he was driving, like just deliberately driving slowly. So obviously it's not a speed issue.
Easy.
Like
yeah, no.
Like, surely if there is somewhere where there's an opportunity, people would be doing
taking it. Yeah.
Is there any possibility to get past someone?
Like we've seen overtakes into the hairpin, which is the really tight one where you see some drivers taking it one-handed. We've seen overtakes into there in the past. Again, not really with the modern cars. Like this was more like 15 years ago, maybe even longer ago, that when we had smaller cars. So not really with the modern cars, but you can technically. We saw Kimi and Bortoleto have that thing just before the tunnel on lap 1. You can kind of overtake there. Again, with this modern car, pretty impossible because of how long they are and how wide they are. After the tunnel, you've got the Nouvelle chicane. You can overtake into there. It's one of the only actual opportunities to overtake. But with the modern cars and how tight that corner is, there's not really a long enough straight to be able to use your DRS to the max or a slipstream to the max. I actually don't think they use DRS in the tunnel anymore. I'm not sure. So like, yes, you used to be able to, but now is a bit more difficult. In 23, we saw some overtakes into that corner, some legit overtakes. Rain helped quite a lot that year. There was like 23 overtakes in that year, and rain helped significantly with that because there was a lot of people like Carlos and I want to say Sergio that didn't pit onto, I think maybe both Ferraris and Sergio in the Red Bull didn't pit onto the Inters soon enough. The rain came quite heavy and they were like sliding all over the place. So there was some genuine overtakes, but it was tire dependent because of the weather. And then into the penultimate corner, which I think is the Rascasse. I think the penultimate corner, you've kind of got it's like a tight right-hander, and then it's a very small straight into that real tight last corner. You can overtake into that if you've got a significant speed difference or tire difference. But again, just with these modern cars, it's just hard. Okay. Like it's just so difficult. Turn 1 as well. Turn 1 used to be like probably 30 or so years ago, used to be a good overtaking point. Not anymore.
Right. Okay. So just how big have the modern cars gotten? Like when, say 30 years ago, how big, how long and wide were the cars versus how long and wide are they today?
Yeah.
And what is that like compared to the track? Like what's the widest point on the track or the narrowest point on the track?
So I've put a diagram in the doco with the cars on it. So cars nowadays are roughly around, I think it was 5.7 meters long. So like 5.5 to 6 meters long. So that is ridiculous. They used to be something like maybe 3.5 meters long. You can see in this diagram, I'll put it on screen as well. The car at the very top, that is a Ferrari from the early 90s or mid 90s. And then the one on the bottom is obviously a Ferrari of that was probably 2017, 18, because that's Seb's number on it. But it's pretty much the same length as what they are today. So you can see the length difference just there, which is a huge factor with overtaking because you've got more car to overtake and you've got more of your car to get in front of the other one. And then the width, they're about 2 meters wide nowadays. And back in the day, they used to be like 1.7, 1.8 meters wide. So that doesn't sound like a ton, like 20 centimeters difference, but when parts of the track, like the narrowest part of the track is like 3 meters wide and the widest part of the track is like 10, but we're talking that's most likely the Nouvelle chicane. There's not massive opportunities. And so these small differences on a track like Silverstone, where it's a really wide open track, that doesn't make a massive difference. But on a track like this, 20 centimeters is huge and it can take away a ton of overtaking opportunities. So yeah, it's quite a bit different. I did also put in a couple of photos just below that one. So the top one is Senna versus, I think, Mansell in 92 or 91, going around the hairpin. And then just put that into comparison with the photo below, which was from this year's race. Look how, like the Red Bull at the bottom, on the bottom photo, look how much more of the corner it's taken up.
Yeah.
It's taken up pretty much the same footprint as what the two cars are taking up in the photo above it. So like that kind of shows you what the difference in length and the difference in width can do to it.
Okay. I see what you're saying. And so if the problem is pretty obviously the cars are too big.
Yeah.
Why not make the cars smaller?
Yes. Why not? I wish we could.
Well, I assume everyone's thought of that. So it feels like a dumb question.
Yeah.
So what's actually stopping that from happening?
So the main thing stopping that is, especially with the length of the cars, is advancements in safety, number one. So the front nose has to have so much in front of the driver's tires, and so much of that has to be pure carbon to protect the driver's feet, to protect the drivers from front on collisions, things like that. So that adds a bit more length. But then also the engines that we've got nowadays. So back when that photo was taken, they were V12 engines in the early 90s. Mm-hmm. And I think they may have been turbocharged, but we're talking a V12 engine with a turbo on it. We now have V6 turbo hybrid engines. So we've got a V6 engine with a turbo and then a hybrid electronical system. So we don't even call them engines anymore. They're called power units now, because there are so many components that if you just ran the engine, I think if you just ran the engine, it would be slower than a GP2, a Formula 2 car. But then if you add the turbo and you add the electronic components to it, that's what gives F1 its current speed. So if we went back to V10s or V12s, maybe even V8s, and racked off this electrical system, we would then be able to shorten the rear of the car because we wouldn't have all that extra shit that we have to chuck in the back. I don't think that'll happen. I know there's been rumors about the V10s coming back. I still think we'll keep the electronical component, because it's modern, it's future technology, it pushes the cars forward, it makes them faster than what they were in the 90s. So I think for things like that, for F1 being the pinnacle of motorsport, we're not just going to get rid of them just to suit Monaco. Mm-hmm. So all of these suggestions are, suggestions on making the car smaller or less wide or whatever are great in theory. And I every week I'm like, let's just fucking make them smaller. But the way that F1 has gone over the last 15, 20 years, it's just not on the cards. And I don't think it will be in the next 5 to 10.
Okay. So if that's not on the cards, if the cars aren't going to get any smaller, I suppose one other suggestion would be just, well, we saw, I think a couple of weeks ago, was it Imola? That was the last time they're racing at Imola. That's just their contract's done and it's probably not on the calendar next year.
Yeah.
You could just not race at Monaco if the Monaco race sucks.
Literally.
But again, I feel like that's potentially a stupid question. Like Monaco has such a long history. Like tell me a little bit about why I feel like people would hate that suggestion as well. Yeah. And that would cause a big uproar. Why is it so important to have the Monaco Grand Prix? Why is that such a dumb?
I think the Monaco Grand Prix is the same as the British Grand Prix. Like, and I'm not just talking Silverstone. I think Silverstone is one of the best, but like if Silverstone lost their contract and it went to Donington or Brands Hatch again, then it wouldn't matter. We just need a British Grand Prix because it was like the home of F1 and it's the start of it. Monaco is kind of the same. Like it just summarizes what Formula One is at its core, which is just money, showmanship, and the stupidest things that could ever happen in Formula One will happen at Monaco. As in, I think it was in 2004 or 2005, Jaguar, before Red Bull bought Jaguar, they raced with diamonds, a genuine fucking diamond on the front of their nose. Because the sponsor wanted to put a diamond on the front of the nose. One of the cars Mark Webber was driving crashed into barrier and the diamond went missing. Still never been found.
No way.
So like just dumb shit happens in Monaco. But I think that's kind of the point of F1 is like, it's just a lot of millionaires running around doing whatever the fuck they want to do. And I think Monaco summarizes that perfectly. But also to look at its history, when you look back at motorsport in history, we have the Triple Crown, which is Monaco, Indy 500, and the 24 Hours of Le Mans. So I don't think it'll happen in modern day racing, but if a driver wanted to get the Triple Crown, you'd have to race them 3 races. So Indy 500 is in America on the Indianapolis circuit, 24 Hours of Le Mans, obviously in France, and then the Monaco Grand Prix. If you win all 3 of them, you get the Triple Crown. The only driver on the grid that could do it is Alonso. He's not won the Indy 500, but he's won the other two. So he could go and get it. But I think he's a bit too late on in his career now to try. He has tried a few times.
Wait, Alonso's won the 24 Hours of Le Mans.
Yeah, I think maybe twice.
What the fuck?
Yeah. He was racing for McLaren in Formula One when he went for the Triple Crown to get, I think it was the Indy when he tried to get. So he literally just didn't race the Monaco Grand Prix and Jenson Button stepped in for him so he could go and race the Indianapolis, the Indy 500.
Oh, yeah. What a man.
Yeah. But history like that, like racing drivers back in the day, there's a great documentary, I think it's on Binge in Australia, all about Bruce McLaren and like how he built up the McLaren F1 team. And he was a paid driver to other teams like Ford in the Le Mans series and the Endurance series. He was a paid driver for Maserati before McLaren were a team and things like that. So, back in the day, you would have drivers that wouldn't just be an F1 driver. They would race F1, they would race sports car, they would race rally, they would race motorbikes, they would do everything. And so the Triple Crown back then was a legit thing people could go for. I think nowadays with current contracts and sponsorships and how taxing an F1 season is and other seasons as well, I think it's more difficult. And I don't think we'll see another Triple Crown winner Max could fucking quit next year, go and do Indy, win it, go and do Le Mans, win it. Max could be the guy, but I don't know if he would do it. But yeah, things like that make Monaco, pushes it up as like the thing F1 has.
Okay. So if it looks like the cars aren't going to get smaller and Monaco is going to stay on the calendar, what else could be done or like, do we just accept that nothing's happening and it's not getting fixed and we just watch qualifying and forget about the race? Or like what else is there that could be done to make it an enjoyable race? Is there any solutions getting thrown about? Are there spots on the track that they can widen or change or do something with?
Yeah. So I've never seen this suggestion until like 2 days ago. But I think this was the race posted it on Instagram or Twitter or whatever. 3 suggestions to changing the track that could improve overtaking or make the track more overtaking friendly. So the first one was to move the Nouvelle chicane. I'll put all 3 of these on screen as well if you're watching. If not, go and watch the YouTube video. So the first one was move the Nouvelle chicane, or just search the race and you'll see it on there. The Nouvelle chicane, move it approximately 80 meters further away. So you would come out the tunnel, you would drop down the hill, and then you would flatten off for a little bit, for 80 meters or so, and then you would have the Nouvelle chicane. So moving that back could increase the straight line speed out of the tunnel and down there, create a flat braking zone, so you're not kind of downhill braking, and potentially change the shape of it slightly so that the entry would be more of you could send a dive bomb a bit, like a dive bomb wouldn't be out of the question. So moving that backwards could introduce more overtakes there. I froth that. I think that's a great idea. And when I say I've never seen this, that's why this is the first thing I've ever seen where I'm like, okay, yeah, well, this could improve Monaco.
Okay.
Just doing that one thing could improve Monaco. And then Raskas, the penultimate corner that we spoke about last time, they suggested changing the apex. So just making the apex, instead of it being like a nice soft round right-hander, making it a bit more of a tighter one so that you can't just like swoop around it. So you actually have to brake a bit harder to get in there. And then also changing the barriers on the outside to push them out a bit so they're a bit wider. Again, doing that would just mean you could send a bit of a dive bomb down the inside. The car that is defending the position that would then be on the outside still has space to get around the corner because the barriers aren't super tight. Again, I froth that. I think that's a great idea. And then the hairpin. This is the one I think a lot of purists are going to fucking hate because the hairpin, I think, is one of the only things on the calendar, on the track that's been unchanged. And it's such an iconic corner, but it has to fucking go. Like, we need to do something about it. So they're talking about widening I don't even fucking know what that word is. Fairmont. Don't know what that means. But they're talking about like widening the entrance. So instead of it being kind of like a bulbous head, it's kind of a bit flatter on the entrance. So again, you could try and send a dive bomb down the inside and then pushing the barriers on the exit out more. So basically the same as what they're talking about with Raskas, but doing it on the chicane. So the hairpin wouldn't be, like that kind of bulbous rounded head. it would be a bit flatter on the entry and then still have the rounded exit on the apex. But then making them barriers on the outside, like pushing them out a bit more, making them wider, means that if you're going to send a dive bomb and you're the defending car and someone's trying to dive bomb you, you can at least kind of not hit the barrier or not have to fucking slow down to a crawling pace to get around the corner. You can at least get enough steering lock to get around the corner. So there's 3 suggestions.
Okay.
And I love all 3 of them.
All right.
I think a lot of purists will hate them.
Yep.
But I don't give a fuck. Monaco's boring.
Okay, very good. And then outside of sort of engineering corners or trying to widen bits of the track or anything like that, is there? What I assume that the 2 pit stop strategy didn't go that swimmingly last week. Is there anything else along those lines that you think's worth a crack in future years?
Martin said during the broadcast, he was like, "Yeah, I don't really like this. Maybe if they made it that you would have to do your first pit stop in the first 20 and then your second pit stop." That feels a bit Wienersville. It feels like you're kind of telling the cars when to pit. And I kind of think I was so excited and I was so hopeful for the 2-stop. And I kind of think that adding more regulations to when you're allowed to pit is just going to mean that everyone on the grid is going to do the exact same like transition to tires and pit stop strategy and things. And yeah, I don't know. It just feels weird. Honestly, the only other thing I can think is let's fucking not have a Grand Prix and let's just do 2 sprint races and let's just have the softest compound in the range. You have to pit during the 2 sprint races. Or let's just have a fucking randomized button that the FIA has that just randomizes a lap and then the sprinklers above the track and it fucking rains all over the track so that mid-race, no one knows when. It's just the rain's gonna hit and you're gonna need to pit for inters or wets.
Crikey.
Like, if we're gonna throw out crazy ideas, let's do that.
Okay. Very good. All right. Well, I think they're all my main questions that I had for you, Dave. You wanted to finish with a little game. You've demonstrated some knowledge of Monaco. We wanted to put it to the test, see if you've got these few little pieces of trivia under your belt. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I like it.
Okay. Well, you kind of stole my first question. I thought I'd start nice and easy with what year was the first Monaco Grand Prix held. You've already covered that in the intro. It was 1929.
Yep.
For a bonus point I had, so this can just be the first question. Who won it?
Oh, no clue.
No clue.
No clue. I feel like
you knew I was going to quiz you on the Monaco Grand Prix. You didn't bother looking at the first ever one.
I thought you would look at more iconic. I didn't do any research. I thought you would just
more iconic than the first one.
Yeah, but like, yeah, no, okay, it's very fair. I don't know. I feel like I've read something or I've seen something in the past that the guy was like he was like some like spy or some shit. He was like an MI5 spy. I don't fucking know. Okay,
I didn't do a deep dive into his personal life or his history. His name was William Charles Frederick Grover Williams.
Okay.
And Williams. I found it, yeah. Well, he wasn't driving for Williams.
No, Williams weren't formed in 1929.
Yeah. He was driving for Bugatti.
Yes.
Which I found interesting. I didn't like Bugatti now just make sexy looking Veyrons and stuff. I didn't know that they were big on their Grand Prix in 1929.
Well, this was the thing. It probably wasn't like, it was probably just someone that works for Bugatti, or it was, it could have been the founder of Bugatti. Like people used to rock up with whatever cars they had, or they would go to a manufacturer like Bugatti or Ferrari or Maserati or whatever. And they would just say, hey, I've got this chassis. I've got this like empty car. Can you put an engine in it? And they'll go, yeah, here's an engine. Go and race and like put our stickers on the side or whatever. Back in the day, it wasn't as like formalized as what it is now. Like a team like Mercedes, when you read that, it's like Bugatti. It's like, okay, great. But it's probably not like Bugatti probably aren't there with a fucking 20-man pit crew kind of thing. It's probably just like 5 blokes.
Gotcha. Okay. Has Bugatti been involved since the big 1950? No. Okay.
No. Not that I know.
Okay.
But certainly not through the 70s, 80s, 90s, noughties, teens and 20s.
Sure. All right. So you're none from one. Question 2. At the 2019 Monaco Grand Prix, Mercedes sported a red halo.
Yeah.
Why?
Niki Lauda had recently passed. And so Niki Lauda always wore a red cap. And so what they wanted to do was they wanted to honor Niki Lauda, put a red halo on top of the car. And then post-race, everyone on the grid wore a Niki Lauda, a red cap that said Niki on the front of it.
Okay. Nice. Yep. Well, yeah, definitely correct. Well done, Dave. 1 from 2. And question 3, and our final question. Which driver crashed into the wall during qualifying at the 2021 Monaco Grand Prix, preventing anyone from beating his pole time?
Max Verstappen.
Wrong.
Oh, Lewis.
Nah, Charles Leclerc.
Oh, of course. Fuck.
2021. He's put it on pole and then crashed, caused dropped the red flag.
Yeah, I remember that now.
That is a huge sneak off.
2016 was similar. Rosberg, he had pole and he didn't crash, but he went off down one of the escape roads. Lewis was on a faster time, double waved yellows. Lewis had slow. Nico gets pole, and it was a very controversial turning point in 2016.
Really?
Yeah, so it happens regular at Monaco.
Interesting. Are we sure it's not deliberate?
Oh, no, it's for sure deliberate. That's what I'm saying. It happens regular enough because drivers know what they're doing. The Charles one was maybe a bit more...
Yeah, it looked pretty... he hit the curb and stuff.
Yeah, he bounced off the curb, clips back. It looks a bit more like how you're going, but also, he's on pole.
Do you remember what happened in 2021? Because he didn't get his first Monaco win until last year, so he obviously someone overtook him.
I feel like they fucked the pit stop. I think he came into the pits and the tyres weren't there.
Oh, that's what you want from your pit stop.
Yeah.
I hate it when tyres are there.
I know, just ideal. But no, I can't fully remember. It was definitely something in the pits. He got overtaken. It was the same with Danny Rick in 2014 or 15. And the reason for Danny Rick's redemption was that he was on pole. They fricked his pit stop up. And then I think Lewis won the race because of that. And then, he got his redemption a few years later.
Oh, lovely.
That wraps up another lap around the Formula Fools podcast. Thank you for joining us. And if you want to get in touch with us or join in with the chats, I don't really know what I'm saying. I locked my phone, so I'm just riffing all of this. You can follow us on social media. We are at Formula Fools on Facebook and at Formula_Fools on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. So go check us out there.
Yep, please do. You can also leave us a rating and or review wherever you're listening. Apple, Spotify, they help us just get up the charts, get more people listening. That sort of stuff is what we're after. Thank you.
Absolutely. And if you've got any suggestions for episodes like this, like educational episodes or historic episodes, I guess, kind of, then let us know. Drop us an Instagram or TikTok message or comment on YouTube and we'll look into it and we're going to try and get more of these out.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's plenty of things like this that would be nice to do a deep dive on. Even just the conversation today would have sparked some ideas. But you and I suck at editing, so but we'll try. We'll get
there. We'll get there one day. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.